In the hushed glow of the moonlit sea, there lingers a question that has echoed across centuries. A question that has drifted like a seashell in the currents of time. Does Atlantis truly exist? Long before the stars first whispered to the oceans, the world was full of silences waiting to be broken. And in those silences, the minds of mortals began to wander. Their dreams grew like the tides drawn by the pull of a secret that lay beyond the horizon. The legends of Atlantis began as a hush, a flicker of curiosity in the hearts of ancient mariners who traced the constellations with calloused fingers and felt the pull of something more beneath the waves. They spoke of a city not bound by earth or stone, but by the pulse of the sea itself. A kingdom of light and water, where silver towers rose like the spires of dreams and gardens of coral sang in the twilight. The city was said to be cradled in the embrace of the ocean, a pearl hidden beneath the surface of a restless world. Those who listened to the wind's sighs believed they could hear its name, Atlantis, drifting between the crashing waves, as if the sea itself could not bear to forget. And so from the lips of poets and the quills of scholars, the legend took root. It was told that Atlantis was the crown jewel of the old world, a place of wonder and balance, a testament to the harmony between man and the depths. In the quiet hours before sleep, storytellers spoke of shimmering streets of archways carved from moonlight, and of fountains that wept with the memory of the stars. But even as the tale grew so, too did the question, why did Atlantis vanish? The sea had claimed it. Of that, all agreed. Yet the truth lay as deep and dark as the waters that swallowed the city whole. Some said it was punishment, a price for pride. Others claimed it was merely the fate of all that dares to dream too brightly. And so the question lived on, a quiet pulse in the minds of the curious. Tonight, as the gentle surf murmurs beneath the blanket of night, let your mind drift back to those ancient whispers. Let the tide carry you to a time when the world was young, and Atlantis still shone like a beacon beneath the waves. Listen as the sea's breath grows softer, and let the echo of curiosity guide you. For in the search for Atlantis, there is more than the hope of discovery. There is the comfort of the story itself, a story that rocks you gently in its cradle of tides and stars. Close your eyes and let the dream begin. Beneath the soft hush of the sea, the story of Atlantis begins to take shape. A dream woven from moonlight and salt water, born in the minds of those who dared to wonder. They say it was Poseidon himself, Lord of the oceans, who first cradled Atlantis in the palm of his hand. With a breath of brine and a whisper of starlight, he molded the land into a crescent of beauty, a kingdom where the sea's voice would never be silenced, and the air would forever taste of salt and possibility. The city rose like a vision from the foam, its streets a delicate lattice of marble and pearl. Bridges of alabaster spanned canals that shimmered with the glow of the moon, and fountains spilled water as clear as crystal tears. Gardens of coral and shell were tended with reverence, their colors shifting like the moods of the sea. At night, the city glowed softly, a lantern beneath the waves flickering with the gentle rhythm of the tides. Lanterns of silver and pearl swayed in the wind, casting ripples of light across the mosaic floors. The music of the waves was their lullaby, the scent of salt their constant companion. Yet for all its beauty, Atlantis was more than stone and water. It was an idea, a dream of harmony between man and the ocean's mysteries. The people of Atlantis believed the sea was alive, a goddess with moods as changeable as the moon, and they honored her with every breath. They listened to the tides as one might listen to a lover's sigh, and in return, the sea kept them safe, for a time. The city's scholars chronicled the movements of the stars and the pulse of the deep, writing their findings in scripts of flowing water and curling foam. Their libraries held more than books. They held the breath of the world, captured in the flicker of a lantern's flame or the echo of a seashell's song. In the quiet hours, when the world above was still and the moon rode high, the people of Atlantis would gather in the gardens of reflection. There, beneath archways carved from coral, they would speak in hushed voices of the sea's secrets, of where the waves began and where they might end. And in their voices was the certainty of dreamers that Atlantis was not just a place, but a promise. But even as the city flourished, the seeds of its fate were already sown. For in the heart of Atlantis was a quiet arrogance, a belief that they alone could master the sea's capricious ways. They sang to the waves as if they were their own, forgetting that the ocean belongs to no one. Yet for now, in these early days, Atlantis stood untouched, a testament to the wonder that can be born from the marriage of dream and salt. The air tasted of mystery, and every breath was a prayer to the deep. So let yourself drift, dear listener, as the sea's lullaby grows softer. Let the birth of this dream cradle you in its currents, and know that in every pebble of the waves there is a whisper of what was and what might still be. Close your eyes and feel the pull of the tides. Let the memory of Atlantis guide you as you float ever deeper into the song of the sea. In the gentle cradle of the ocean, Atlantis stood like a shimmering jewel, a city of crystal and song, where every breath was a hymn to the sea's eternal rhythm. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, and with each tender ray of light, the city awoke in a cascade of colors. Towers of marble and glass caught the dawn's glow, shimmering in shades of rose and gold. Bridges arched gracefully over canals that wound like ribbons of liquid sapphire, carrying the gentle murmur of the waves deeper into the heart of the city. The streets of Atlantis were paved with smooth stones that gleamed like moonlight. Mosaics of pearl and coral adorned the squares and courtyards, their delicate patterns telling stories of gods and mortals, of tempests and dreams. Fountains sang in quiet voices, their waters catching the sun in a dance of silver and foam. Everywhere there was beauty, but it was a beauty born of harmony, of a people who had learned to shape their lives in tune with the tides. The markets bustled softly in the morning mist, the scent of salt and spice drifting on the air. Fishermen in slender boats returned with nets heavy with the sea's bounty, their laughter as bright as the spray of the waves. In the heart of the city stood the Temple of Tides, a place of both reverence and wonder. Its great dome rose high above the rooftops, a shell of glass and crystal that captured the shifting colors of the sky. Here, the priests of the sea gathered in silence, listening to the deep's whispers, a music that only the patient could hear. It was said that those who stood beneath the dome on a night of full moon could hear the ocean's memory, the sighs of ancient waves, the laughter of the first rains. The temple's walls were lined with shells and corals, each one a fragment of the sea's endless story. But it was not only the temples and towers that made Atlantis a wonder. It was the spirit of its people, dreamers and artisans, scholars and poets. They wove their lives together like the threads of a tapestry, each voice a part of the city's gentle song. At twilight, the city was at its most magical. Lanterns of pale blue glass were lit one by one, their light soft and shimmering like starlight trapped in water. The canals mirrored the glow, turning the streets into rivers of light. Music drifted from the balcony, sweet and slow, a lullaby for the night. In those quiet hours, lovers would walk hand in hand along the water's edge, their whispers mingling with the murmur of the waves. Children would gather to listen to the old tales of the sea goddess who had given them their city, of the promise that the waves would always hold them close. But beneath the laughter and the light, there was a quiet pride, a belief that Atlantis was eternal, that nothing could shake the bond they had forged with the sea. The city's beauty was both its gift and its secret, a treasure too perfect, too fragile to last. For now, though, Atlantis shimmered on a dream of marble and mist of coral and moonlight. It was a city that seemed to breathe with the tides, each wave a sigh of contentment, each ripple a promise of more to come. And as you drift tonight, let the memory of that splendor soothe you. Let the crystal towers rise in your mind, each one a lullaby of light. Feel the soft pull of the ocean's breath, and know that in every dream, Atlantis still waits, gleaming beneath the waves, a promise that will never fade. Close your eyes and let the city's song carry you deeper into the night. As the days slipped by like the gentle ebb of the tide, the people of Atlantis prepared for the festival of light and pearl, a celebration of their bond with the sea and of the beauty that rose from the depths to meet the sky. It was said that on the night of the festival, the sea herself would lend her light to the city, a gift of silver waves and shimmering pearls, a moment when the ocean's secrets danced in the open air. Lanterns of glass and shell were hung from every archway, their soft glow turning the streets into rivers of moonlight. As dusk fell, the city gathered along the water's edge. Musicians plucked at strings of coral and driftwood, their music weaving through the air like the murmur of the waves. The scent of salt and honey drifted from the feasting tables, and laughter sparkled like foam at the crest of a wave. Children's eyes shone with wonder as the first of the pearls was brought forth, a sphere of luminous beauty pulled from the deep by the most skilled of the sea divers. It was cradled in hands that smelled of brine and seaweed, and for a moment, the entire city seemed to hold its breath. The high priestess of the tide stepped forward, her robes the color of twilight, and her voice as soft as the ocean's sigh. With a gentle motion, she placed the pearl into the fountain at the heart of the city square. Water flowed around it, shimmering with the light of 1,000 stars. The people watched in silence, their faces lit by the gentle glow. In that light, every doubt and fear seemed to fade away, replaced by the certainty that the sea would always hold them close, that the song of the waves would never be stilled. But even as the city rejoiced, there were whispers, soft as the rustle of seaweed in the tide. Some said that the festival was more than a celebration. It was a promise, a fragile truce between Atlantis and the deep, a promise that the sea would always be their friend, unless they forgot to honor her. As the night deepened, dancers moved through the streets in patterns that mirrored the swirling currents. Their steps were slow and deliberate, each one an echo of the tides. Silver bells wove through their hair, chiming softly with each movement, like the laughter of the sea herself. Above them, the moon rose round and full, painting the canals in silver and shadow. The waves lapped gently at the city's edges, as if in time with the dancers' feet. In those hours, Atlantis seemed to float between two worlds, the solid earth beneath their feet and the endless mystery of the sea. As the final dance came to an end, the high priestess lifted her hands and spoke a blessing in the ancient tongue of the tides. Her voice was soft, yet it carried through the quiet, weaving into the hearts of all who listened. "May the sea cradle your dreams," she said, "and may you remember that in every drop of water there is a memory of all that was and all that might still be." The crowd bowed their heads, the light of the lanterns reflecting in their eyes. And for a moment, the city seemed suspended in a perfect stillness, a single breath shared by the ocean and the land. As the festival drew to a close, the people of Atlantis lingered by the canals, watching the pearls glow softly in the water. The night was warm and gentle, and the song of the sea was a lullaby that wrapped around their hearts. And so the city slept, rocked by the tide's slow dance. The festival was over, but the promise of the sea remained, a promise as bright and fragile as a pearl hidden beneath the waves. Close your eyes and let that promise carry you deeper into the night. Let the memory of Atlantis, lit by the glow of 1,000 lanterns, cradle you in its gentle arms. In the quiet hours that followed the festival of light and pearl, when the city had returned to its gentle rhythm, and the sea's sigh was the only song that filled the night, there walked a figure known only as the Keeper of Tides. He was a man of few words, wrapped in robes the color of storm clouds and midnight waves. His hair was silver like the crest of a moonlit breaker, and his eyes held the calm, patient depths of the sea itself. Some said he had been born in the hour when the ocean was at its stillest, when even the tides dared not move. Each dawn he could be found at the edge of the city, standing on the smooth stones where the canals met the sea. With a staff carved from driftwood worn smooth by the endless kiss of salt and spray, he would watch the waters dance, the gentle rise and fall that measured the city's breath. The people of Atlantis honored him, though few truly knew the depth of his wisdom. They believed he held the secrets of the tides in the palm of his hand, that he could hear the ocean's dreams in the hush of the waves. And in a way it was true, for the Keeper of Tides listened more deeply than any other, his heart attuned to the softest sigh of the deep. In the quiet moments of dawn, he would close his eyes and let the rhythm of the water speak to him. Each swell was a word, each ripple a breath. He understood that the sea was alive, a living, shifting memory that carried the weight of time in every drop. It was said that in the Keeper's presence the restless waves grew gentle, that even the fiercest storm would pause to hear his whispered words. For he spoke not to command the tides, but to honor them, to remind the sea that Atlantis had not forgotten the promise made long ago in the first days, when the city rose from the foam. Children would watch him from afar, their voices hushed in the morning light. They believed he was a bridge between worlds, a mortal soul who had learned the language of the deep. And in the soft lilt of the Keeper's voice, there was a lullaby that spoke of moonlight on water, of dreams carried on the swell of the tide. Yet even he could sense a shift in the ocean's breath, a quiet unease that lapped at the edges of the city like the first whisper of a coming storm. In the shadows of the Keeper's thoughts, there flickered a memory of ancient warnings, that the sea was both cradle and tomb, both lover and judge. Still, the Keeper of Tides stood at his post, his staff planted firmly in the sand. And in his heart was a prayer that Atlantis would remember the old songs, that the city would not forget its debt to the waves. At night, when the moon painted the canals in silver and the city slept beneath the hush of the sea, the keeper would walk the quiet streets. His footsteps echoed softly on the stones, each one a beat in the city's endless song. He would pause by the fountains, by the shimmering mosaics, and listen to the echo of water flowing in the dark. In those hours, the city's beauty was a fragile thing, a promise of peace that trembled in the moonlight. And the keeper knew that peace was never certain, not when the sea itself was always moving, always dreaming. So let the keeper's footsteps guide you tonight as you drift into sleep. Let his calm voice wrap around your thoughts like the hush of the tide, and know that in every breath of the ocean there is a memory of Atlantis, of all that was and all that might still be. Close your eyes and let the rhythm of the water carry you deeper into the night. Hidden deep within the heart of Atlantis, there lay a sanctuary unlike any other, the Library of Salt and Stars. It was a place of quiet wonder, where the knowledge of the sea was gathered like pearls in a diver's net, and where the voices of ancient waves whispered softly between the rows of shelves. The library was carved into the very bones of the city, a hall of pale stone that seemed to glow with an inner light. Salt crystals clung to the walls, shimmering like tiny stars against the cool marble. The scent of the ocean hung in the air, a gentle reminder of the tide's eternal embrace. Here beneath a ceiling carved to mimic the night sky, scholars and dreamers moved in hushed reverence. They ran their fingers over the delicate scrolls and tablets, each one etched with the memory of Atlantis, its histories, its songs, and its secrets. The scripts were written in the flowing lines of water words that shimmered like the crest of a wave under moonlight. Lanterns of silvered glass hung from the arches, their glow soft and steady, like the light of the stars that watched over the city. In that glow, the library felt timeless, a breath held in the hush between tides, a prayer made of ink and salt. It was said that the library was founded by the first keepers of Atlantis, those who had listened to the sea's stories and vowed to remember them always. They believed that knowledge was the surest anchor against the shifting currents of fate, and so they gathered every scrap of wisdom they could find, weaving it into the tapestry of their city. Scrolls spoke of the birth of Atlantis, of the songs sung by the first fishermen to honor the sea's bounty. Tablets recorded the movements of the stars and the moon's silver path across the sky. And in the oldest, most fragile volumes, there were tales of things that had come before even Atlantis, of civilizations lost to the deep, of voices that had faded long before the city rose from the foam. In the quiet corners of the library, one could find poets with ink-stained fingers, their eyes lost in the shifting patterns of the water. There were scholars who traced the constellations on the ceiling, believing that each star was a fragment of the sea's endless memory. And there were those who simply came to listen, to hear the soft sigh of salt air, the distant echo of waves that never slept. But for all its beauty, the Library of Salt and Stars was more than just a place of learning. It was a promise that Atlantis would remember, that even if the sea rose up in anger, even if the city was swallowed by the deep, its stories would live on, carried in the gentle breath of the ocean. The Keeper of Tides was often seen there, his presence a quiet reassurance. He would run his weathered fingers over the ancient texts, his eyes reflecting the lantern's glow. In his silence was a vow that he too would remember even when the city's laughter had faded into the hush of the sea. Some nights when the moon was high and the world seemed made of nothing but water and light. The library itself seemed to sigh, a soft exhalation that drifted through the arches like the breath of a sleeping giant. And in that sigh, there was both peace and sorrow, the knowledge that all things are carried by the tide, and that even the brightest dream can be worn away by the sea's patient hands. Yet for now, the library of salt and stars stood strong, its walls a haven for those who still believed in the power of stories. It was a lullaby made of ink and salt, a gentle promise that knowledge is never truly lost, only waiting to be found once more. So let the library's whispers cradle you tonight as you drift deeper into sleep. Let the scent of salt and the soft glow of lantern light carry you to the edge of dreams where the memory of Atlantis waits, patient as the tide, eternal as the stars. Close your eyes and let the library's gentle sigh become your own. As night fell gently over Atlantis, the moon rose from the horizon like a silver guardian, a watchful eye that had seen the rise and fall of countless waves. In the glow of its soft light, the city seemed to shimmer more brightly, its marble towers painted in strokes of pearl and shadow. On nights like these, the people of Atlantis would gather by the canals and whisper to one another of the old stories, tales of the sea goddess who had blessed their city, and of the promise that the moon would always watch over them. They believed that in the moon's reflection, they could glimpse the heart of the ocean, a secret held in the hush of water and light. The keeper of tides was always there, his figure silhouetted against the shimmering water. He would close his eyes and listen, for he knew that the sea spoke most clearly when the moon was full. In the gentle hush of the waves, there was an echo of memories, a song older than the city itself, woven into the rise and fall of the tide. The canals mirrored the moon perfectly, turning the water into a ribbon of silver light that wound through the sleeping streets. Fish glided beneath the surface like drifting dreams, their scales catching the glow and turning it into fleeting sparks of magic. In the gardens of reflection, lanterns swayed in the soft breeze, their flickering flames adding a warm glow to the silver hush. Here, lovers would sit close, their fingers intertwined, as they listened to the soft lapping of the water against the stones. Children lay with heads resting on their parents' laps, eyes heavy with sleep, but wide with wonder. Old men told stories in voices soft as the night, weaving tales of moonlight and mystery. They spoke of a time when the moon and the sea were one, when the ocean's breath rose and fell in perfect harmony with the silver light. In their words, the city itself seemed to pause listening, as if it too remembered. But even in this quiet beauty, there was a note of longing, a gentle ache in the heart of every soul who gazed upon the moon's reflection. For the people of Atlantis knew that the moon was both a promise and a warning, that just as it could light their nights, it could also call the tides to rise and claim what was once given. The keeper of tides understood this better than any other. He watched the moon's pale face and felt the pull of the deep in his bones, a silent reminder that the sea's embrace was both cradle and grave. Yet he did not fear it. In the soft echo of the moonlight, he heard the lullaby of the world, the song that had begun before Atlantis had even dreamed. As the night deepened, the city grew quieter still, each breath a prayer, each heartbeat a soft ripple in the hush. The moon climbed higher, and in its glow, the towers of Atlantis seemed to reach for the stars, a fleeting bridge between the earth and the endless sky. Some said that on nights like this, when the moon was full and the sea was calm, one could hear the voice of Atlantis itself, a whisper that rose from the depths and wound through the streets like a breath of salt and memory. It was a voice that spoke of beauty and of loss of dreams born and broken on the tide. So let the echo of the moon guide you tonight as you drift deeper into the world of dreams. Let its silver light wash over your thoughts, soothing them into stillness. For in the gentle pull of the tide, in the soft sigh of the waves, there is a memory of Atlantis, of all that was and all that might yet be. Close your eyes and let the moon's reflection carry you away, a lullaby of silver light and ancient seas. As dawn approached in a haze of sea foam and light, the city of Atlantis prepared to greet the coming day. But in one hidden corner of the city, where the tide's breath was softest and the water's whisper was most gentle, there hung a single bell, a relic of silver coral, shaped by patient waves and ancient dream. They called it the Bell of Silver Coral, and it was said to hold the memory of every tide that had ever touched the city's shores. Hung from an arch of driftwood carved by time, the bell was both delicate and eternal, a song trapped in the hush of the deep. The keeper of tides often visited this quiet place in the earliest hours, his footsteps soft as the mist that kissed the stones. He would pause before the bell, his hand hovering over the cool, smooth surface, as if to feel the heartbeat of the ocean beneath his fingertips. When the bell rang, its voice was like a sigh of the sea itself, a sound so soft that it seemed to echo in the soul rather than in the air. It was a lullaby of silver and salt, a memory of moonlight on water, and the hush of ancient waves. On nights when the moon was full and the city was wrapped in the hush of sleep, the keeper would ring the bell once, a single note that drifted across the canals like a blessing. It was said that in that moment the sea paused to listen, and the heart of Atlantis beat in time with the deep. But the Bell of Silver Coral was more than a song. It was a promise, a reminder that the sea gave and took in equal measure, and that even the brightest dream could be claimed by the tide. The people of Atlantis knew this, and in the bell's gentle note was both comfort and warning, a whisper that beauty is always borrowed, never owned. Children who heard the bell in their sleep would smile and sigh, their dreams filled with the soft glow of lanterns and the cool kiss of the ocean's breath. Lovers would wake in the night to its gentle song, their hands clasped tighter as they listened to the echo of eternity. The old said that the bell had been gifted to Atlantis by the sea goddess herself, a token of her love, or perhaps her mercy. It was her voice that rang in the hush of dawn, her memory that lingered in the silver note. And in its soft chime was the promise that the sea would always remember, even if the city forgot. The keeper of tides understood this better than any other. He knew that each ring of the bell was a heartbeat of the world, a breath of time, caught between the rise and fall of the waves. He would stand there, long after the last note had faded his eyes, reflecting the light of the coming sun. And as the city stirred awake, the fishermen casting their nets, the merchants opening their stalls, the keeper would walk the quiet streets carrying the bell's song in his heart. For he knew that Atlantis was more than marble and glass, more than the laughter of its people or the shimmer of its towers. Atlantis was a dream, a fragile, luminous thing that lived in the hush between tides, in the sigh of the sea, and in the memory of those who dared to listen. So let the bell of silver coral ring softly in your mind tonight, its silver note weaving through your thoughts like a lullaby. Let it carry you deeper into sleep, where the waves are gentle and the moon's reflection shimmers in every breath. Close your eyes and let the bell's echo cradle you, a promise that even in the silence of the deep, the song of Atlantis will always sing on. Deep within the winding heart of Atlantis, there existed a place few knew by name, yet many felt its presence in their quietest thoughts, the Council of Dreamers. It was not a council of kings or warriors, but of poets, philosophers, and those whose hearts beat in time with the sigh of the sea. They gathered in a chamber carved from the oldest coral, where the walls shimmered with the faint glow of phosphorescent algae. Soft light wove between the delicate columns, like moonlight caught in a net, and the air was filled with the scent of salt and memory. The Council of Dreamers was a place of hushed voices and gentle questions. Here, the scholars of Atlantis spoke of things beyond the reach of maps, of the shape of the horizon, in a dream of the echoes of voices long vanished beneath the waves. Each word was a ripple, each thought a breath of the deep. They believed that Atlantis was not merely a city of marble and pearl, but a living poem, a song sung by the sea and echoed in the hearts of those who dared to dream. In their soft voices was the certainty that Atlantis would endure, if not in stone and glass, then in the hush of water and the glow of the moon. The keeper of tides often sat among them, his presence a quiet comfort. He would listen to their stories, his eyes reflecting the flicker of lantern light as he traced the shifting patterns of the tide in his thoughts. And when he spoke, it was with the calm of the deep, a voice that carried the hush of the ocean's breath. They spoke of the old legends, of how Atlantis was born from the sea's longing, a dream given form by the kiss of salt and moonlight. They spoke of the promise that even as the city's towers crumbled, its memory would drift on the tide carried in the hearts of all who listened. But in the soft music of their words, there was also a quiet sorrow, an understanding that even the brightest dream can be claimed by the deep. They knew that the sea was both cradle and grave, both muse and judge. And in the hush of the chamber, they honored that truth with every breath. The Council of Dreamers kept no records, wrote no decrees. Their words were like the tide, forever shifting, forever flowing. But each voice added to the song of Atlantis, weaving a tapestry of memory and hope that shimmered in the hush between heartbeats. Some nights when the moon was high and the air was heavy with the scent of salt, they would light a single candle and let it burn low. In its flickering glow, they would close their eyes and listen to the hush of the deep, to the sigh of the city as it slept beneath the waves. And in that soft darkness, there was a promise that no matter how far the sea reached, no matter how many towers crumbled to sand, the memory of Atlantis would live on. Not in the stones of the city, but in the dreams of those who dared to remember. So let the Council of Dreamers whisper to you tonight, their voices a gentle tide washing over your thoughts. Let them remind you that in every wave there is a song, in every sigh of the sea, a memory of all that was and all that might yet be. Close your eyes and let their whispers carry you deeper into sleep, to the place where the memory of Atlantis glows like a lantern in the dark, waiting to be found again. The night of the last feast of the tides came softly, like a sigh of the sea across the quiet heart of Atlantis. It was a night of silver lanterns and gentle laughter of warm light flickering in the hush of marble halls. And though no one spoke it aloud, there was a sense that this was a farewell, a final echo of all that had been. The great hall of the city was draped in flowing banners of deep blue and pale pearl colors that mirrored the moonlit waves. Tables were laid with dishes of the sea, oysters and clams that shimmered like dewfish caught in the first light of dawn. Cups of coral wine reflected the flicker of candles, and the scent of salt and honey wove through the air like a lullaby. Musicians played in quiet corners, their songs soft as the lapping of the tide against the shore. Each note was a memory, each chord a breath of the deep. And in that gentle music there was both joy and the hush of an ending. The keeper of tides moved among them, his presence a calm anchor in the swirl of light and laughter. He paused to listen to the soft stories shared by lovers, leaning close to the bright, hopeful dreams of children who believed the sea would never claim their city. His eyes deep as the ocean held a quiet understanding that even in celebration, the tide was always moving. As the feast wore on, the laughter grew softer, the voices lower, as if the city itself was listening to the hush beyond its marble walls. The air tasted of brine and candle smoke, of memories lingering in the corners of the great hall. When the final course was served, a dish of silver-scaled fish, tender and sweet, the high priestess of the tides rose, her robes flowing like the foam of a wave. She lifted her hands, and the hall fell silent, each soul holding its breath in the hush of her presence. Her voice was soft, yet it carried through the quiet, like the echo of a distant wave. Tonight, she said, we honor the sea that has cradled us, the tide that has shaped our dreams. Let this feast be our promise, that we will remember even when the waves rise to claim what they once gave. She bowed her head, and in that moment, a single silver tear slipped down her cheek, a drop of salt, a memory of that was might still be. The keeper of tides closed his eyes, and in the hush that followed, he could hear the soft breath of the deep, the gentle murmur of the sea beyond the walls, waiting patient as time itself. As the feast drew to a close, the people of Atlantis lingered in the flickering light, their laughter now a soft murmur, their dreams woven together like the strands of a net cast into the endless blue. They knew that even the brightest lantern must one day burn low, that even the sweetest song must fade. Yet in that final feast, there was a quiet peace, a knowing that though the sea would claim their city, it could never take the memories that had been made in the hush between tides. The taste of salt on their lips was a promise, the warmth of the lantern light a lullaby. So let the memory of that last feast cradle you tonight as you drift deeper into the quiet of sleep. Let the soft laughter of Atlantis, the hush of the tide, and the gentle echo of silver lanterns weave a lullaby of moonlight and salt. Close your eyes and let the last feast of the tide sing you into dreams, a promise that in every wave, in every sigh of the sea, Atlantis still breathes, waiting to be found again. On the final night when the sea's breath grew restless, and the moon hung heavy in the sky, a hush fell over Atlantis like a veil of silver mist. The city stood poised between silence and song, its towers glowing softly in the moonlight, each one a promise of beauty held too close to the edge. At the heart of Atlantis stood the crystal dome, a wonder of glass and light, that had watched over the city since the first stones were set. It was a testament to the harmony between the sea and those who called it home, a place where prayers rose like mist and dreams were whispered to the tides. Beneath the dome's shimmering surface, the people gathered in quiet reverence. Lanterns glowed in their hands, casting gentle ripples of light that danced across the marble floor. The air tasted of salt and moonlight, a lullaby for the restless waves outside. The keeper of tides stood among them, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the lanterns. He felt the shift in the water's breath, a change as subtle as the sigh of a dreamer, as deep as the heart of the sea itself. In the quiet of that moment, he understood that the promise of Atlantis was slipping away, carried in the hush between heartbeats. The high priestess lifted her hands, her voice a soft echo in the hush. "We have honored the sea," she said, "and it has cradled us in its gentle arms. But now it calls for what was always its own." Her words were not a lament, but a gentle acceptance, a lullaby for the city that had always belonged to the deep. And then, in the quiet that followed, a sound like a sigh rose from the depths, a soft crack that echoed through the dome like the first breath of a storm. The crystal above them shivered light, fracturing into 1,000 shards of moonlight and salt. Slowly, almost tenderly, the crystal dome began to break. The fractures spread like silver veins, each crack a quiet song of farewell. The lanterns flickered in the shifting light, and the people of Atlantis watched in silence, their eyes wide with wonder and sorrow. Outside, the sea rose higher, its waves kissing the marble steps of the city's edge. The deep had come to claim its own, and in the hush of that final breath, the people of Atlantis understood that beauty is always fleeting, a gift borrowed from the tide, never truly theirs to hold. The keeper of tides closed his eyes, his hand resting on the cool marble beneath his feet. He felt the tremor of the earth, the soft sigh of the city as it surrendered to the waves. In his heart, he carried the memory of every lantern lit, every prayer whispered to the moon. As the last shard of the crystal dome fell, the sea poured in like a soft embrace, a gentle hand that cradled the city's bones, washing away the weight of stone and memory. The water was cool and quiet, a lullaby that wrapped Atlantis in the hush of the deep. Some wept softly, their tears mingling with the salt of the sea. Others simply closed their eyes, letting the water carry them into the memory of what had been. For in that final moment, there was no fear, only the gentle understanding that the sea had come to sing them home. So let the shattering of the crystal dome echo softly in your thoughts tonight, a song of beauty and surrender. Let it remind you that even the brightest light can fade, but its memory lives on in the hush of the deep. Close your eyes and let the gentle sigh of the waves carry you deeper into the quiet of dreams, where Atlantis still breathes hidden in the embrace of the sea. As the last echoes of the crystal dome faded into the hush, the sea rose to claim Atlantis with a tenderness that only the deep could understand. The water slipped between the marble arches, wrapping the city in an embrace of salt and memory, a gentle sigh that carried the weight of centuries. The canals, once alive with laughter and song, became rivers of moonlight and tears. Lanterns flickered beneath the surface, their light drifting like lost fireflies in the slow dance of the tide. The air tasted of salt and sorrow, of memories that clung to the heart like the hush of a lullaby. The keeper of tides stood at the edge of the great square, his staff planted firmly in the stone. He watched as the water rose, each wave a soft breath that carried away the weight of the city's dreams. In his eyes was a quiet understanding that this was not an ending, but a return. For the sea does not forget. It weeps softly for all it has held, for every whisper of love and every sigh of hope. And in the hush of the weeping waters there was a promise that Atlantis would live on, in the cradle of the deep, its memory woven into the lullaby of the waves. The high priestess now knelt at the steps of the Temple of Tides, her fingers tracing the silver veins of the marble, now hidden beneath the gentle surge. Her voice rose in a soft chant, a prayer to the sea that had always been their home. Her words were carried away by the tide, a promise spoken in the hush between heartbeats. Children clung to their mothers, their wide eyes reflecting the flicker of the lanterns beneath the water. They did not weep, for the sea's embrace was not cruel. It was the soft song of homecoming, a lullaby that would cradle them as they drifted into sleep. The old men who had once whispered stories of the moon and the tides now sat in silence, their heads bowed. In the quiet of the deep, they heard the echo of every tale they had told, the laughter of the festivals, the hush of the council of dreamers, the sigh of the bell of silver coral, all of it drifting on the gentle breath of the sea. And above them all, the moon watched in silence, its reflection shimmering in the tears of the water. It was both witness and guardian, its silver light a bridge between the world that was and the deep that would hold them now. The keeper of tides closed his eyes and let the water wash over his feet, cool and gentle. He felt the weight of the city slip away, the hush of marble and memory carried in the slow dance of the waves. In that moment, he knew that Atlantis had not ended. It had simply slipped into a deeper dream. As the sea rose higher, the last of the lanterns flickered out their light, a soft sigh in the hush. The city grew quiet, each breath of the deep, a cradled song that carried them further from the world of sun and sky. Yet in the weeping of the waters there was a comfort, a gentle promise that even in the hush of the deep, the memory of Atlantis would never be lost. It would drift on the tide, carried in the sigh of the sea, and the soft echo of moonlight on water. So let the weeping waters sing you to sleep tonight, their gentle sigh, a lullaby of salt and memory. Let the hush of the deep cradle you, and know that in every wave, in every quiet breath, the dream of Atlantis lives on. Close your eyes, and let the soft sigh of the sea carry you deeper into the quiet, where the city that dreamed beneath the waves still breathes, wrapped in the gentle hush of forever. Long after the towers of Atlantis vanished beneath the sigh of the sea, its memory drifted on, a soft echo carried in the hush of every tide. The sea patient and eternal cradled that memory like a pearl hidden deep in the dark, a secret song that only the heart of the ocean could sing. In the quiet that followed, the world above forgot. The lanterns went dark, and the laughter of the festivals was swallowed by the hush. But in the deep, Atlantis still breathed, a city of dreams wrapped in the slow dance of the tide. The keeper of tides, though long gone, lived on in the soft rhythm of the waves. His footsteps, once steady on the marble streets, had become the gentle pulse of the deep, a beat that hummed through the dark halls of the ocean, reminding the sea of the promise that had once been made. The high priestess's prayers still echoed, woven into the sigh of the current, a lullaby of salt and moonlight that rose and fell with the hush of the water. In that song was the memory of the temples and the gardens of the silver bells that had once chimed in the quiet hours of night. And so Atlantis became more than a place. It became a breath, a shimmer in the corner of the mind. A dream that rose with the tide and slept in the hush of the deep. It was no longer bound by stone or glass, no longer weighed down by pride or sorrow. It was light as the foam that danced on the crest of a wave, as soft as the sigh of the sea. Some say that in the quietest hours of the night, when the world is still and the moon rides high, you can hear the memory of Atlantis in the hush of the water, a soft whisper that drifts through the dark, a promise that beauty never truly fades. Fishermen drifting in the silver glow of moonlight would pause and listen, their nets forgotten, their hearts stilled by the soft echo of what had been. In the lullaby of the waves, they heard the laughter of children, the murmur of lovers, the song of the council of dreamers. Scholars, their lamps flickering in lonely towers, would close their eyes and let the hush of the sea wash over them. In that quiet, they found the memory of Atlantis, a dream that asked nothing but offered everything in the hush of the deep. And in the hearts of those who dared to listen, Atlantis lived on, a city of light and salt, of marble and moonlight, a city that had dreamed beneath the waves and become something more, a memory that could never be claimed by the sea. The ocean in its endless patience held that memory close. It wept softly for what had been lost, but in each tear was a promise that even in the hush of the deep, Atlantis would not be forgotten. So let the memory of Atlantis whisper to you tonight, its gentle sigh, a cradle song for your thoughts. Let it remind you that beauty never truly fades, that dreams never truly die. They live on in the hush between tides and the quiet breath of the sea. Close your eyes and let the memory of Atlantis wrap around you like a soft current, a promise that in every wave, in every sigh of the water, there is a story waiting to be told again. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world was draped in silver and the hush of the sea was all that could be heard, Atlantis slept. It slept beneath the weight of the waves, beneath the slow dance of moonlight, and salt its marble bones cradled in the gentle arms of the deep. The sea patient as always sang to the city in soft whispers, a lullaby of foam and sighs of memories wrapped in the hush of the tide. It was a song that spoke of dreams of laughter, of the fragile light that had once danced in lanterns, now darkened by the kiss of the sea. Above the sleeping city, the moon's reflection drifted across the water like a memory. Its pale glow shimmered in the gentle ripples, weaving a bridge of light between the world that was and the world that waited beyond the hush. And in that glow, the sea's song grew softer, wrapping Atlantis in a promise of gentle slumber. The keeper of tides, though his footsteps no longer echoed on marble, was there still, a memory held in the sigh of the water, a whisper in the hush of the deep. His voice, calm and low, wove through the lullaby, a soft echo that cradled the city in its sleep. The gardens of coral and shell, once bright with laughter and song, now lay quiet beneath the waves. But in the soft hush of the water, their colors still glowed faintly, like dreams that refused to fade. The fish that swam through the silent streets carried the last echoes of children's laughter, of the sweet, slow dance of lovers at twilight. The high priestess's prayers, long since carried away by the tide, lingered in the song of the sea. They were woven into the hush like silver threads, a promise that the city's spirit would never be lost, no matter how deep the water rose. In the heart of the sleeping city, the bell of silver coral rested, its voice stilled, but not forgotten. And though it no longer rang in the hush of dawn, the memory of its soft chime drifted through the waves, a song of hope and farewell, of beauty that would not be claimed by the dark. The sea in its endless patience rocked Atlantis in its cradle of salt and shadow. It whispered to the city of all that had been and all that would come, of the endless rhythm of the tides, of the gentle breath of the moon. And in that whisper there was comfort, a lullaby for a city that had always belonged to the deep. So let the song of the sleeping city cradle you tonight, its gentle notes weaving through your thoughts like the hush of the tide. Let it remind you that even in the quietest hours, when the world seems lost to the dark, there is still a song that sings of dreams and memories, and the gentle hush of forever. Close your eyes and let that song carry you deeper into sleep, to the place where Atlantis dreams beneath the waves, its breath as soft as the sigh of the sea. Long after the last lantern had flickered out, long after the sea had claimed every marble tower and silver bell, the dream of Atlantis still lived on. A soft sigh that drifted through the quiet of the deep patient, as the tide itself. For though the city now slept beneath the gentle hush of the waves, its spirit had never truly left. It lived in the memory of the ocean, in the whisper of moonlight on water, in the soft echo of every sigh of the deep. In the hearts of those who listened, Atlantis was more than a city lost to time. It was a promise, a lullaby that never truly ended. It was the memory of laughter shared in the glow of silver lanterns, the quiet song of the sea that wrapped every thought in the hush of salt and light. The keeper of tides, though long gone from the world above, still walked the silent streets in the dreams of the deep. His staff tapped softly on marble that had become memory, each step a beat in the endless rhythm of the tide. He watched over the sleeping city, a quiet guardian of all that had been and all that might yet be. The high priestess's prayers carried on, the slow breath of the waves wove through the deep like silver threads. They rose and fell with the tide, a gentle promise that the sea would always remember, that even in the hush of the deep, the light of Atlantis still shone. In the quietest hours of the night, when the world above was hushed and the moon's reflection shimmered like a ghost in the water, those who listened closely could hear the dream of Atlantis. It was a soft song that drifted through the hush, a lullaby that carried with it the weight of all that had been loved and lost. Fishermen drifting in the pale glow of moonlight would pause to let the tide's gentle breath wash over them, their hearts still in the quiet echo of what had been. Scholars bent over ancient texts by flickering lamplight would close their eyes and let the hush of the sea weave through their thoughts. And in that hush, they heard the memory of Atlantis, a promise that beauty never truly dies. And in the dreams of children, the city rose again, towers of marble and light gardens of coral that shimmered in the soft glow of dawn. They saw the keeper of tides standing at the water's edge, his eyes calm as the deep. They heard the bell of silver coral ring once more, a soft note that sang of hope and memory. In those dreams, Atlantis was not a city claimed by the sea, but a breath of forever, a promise that even in the hush of the deep light and laughter would always find a way. So let the dream of Atlantis cradle you tonight as you drift deeper into the quiet of sleep. Let it remind you that every sigh of the sea is a memory, every ripple a promise of what was and what might still be. Let it soothe your thoughts with the soft echo of waves against the shore, the gentle hush of the deep that sings of all that was loved and all that was lost. Close your eyes and let that dream carry you away to the place where Atlantis still breathes, wrapped in the gentle sigh of the ocean's embrace. And know that in every wave, in every hush of the tide, the song of the sleeping city lives on, a promise that beauty never truly fades, and that the dream of Atlantis will never end.